Hello, and we are back. So hopefully the last video you saw was the while loops, and now we're going to move into nested loops. And as you can see, I reactivated the for loop and I commented it out the while loop, but they're still there and still working. And as we saw before, when you have a simple for loop like this, it's going to start at 0, end at 2, and go by ones. It's going to go 0, 1, 2, and that's going to do it, print this hello statement out 3 times. But what happens when you have a loop inside a loop, which is referred to as a nested loop? So I'm going to do another for statement, and in fact, let's copy this. It's not going to like it at first, don't worry. And we're going to change this from I to J, if it'll let me. There we go. So all these are now J's instead of I's. So there's now a loop. Oops, and I forget, I got to make sure I encase this guy. In fact, I'm going to do this right away and delete that. And so this has not been auto-corrected, but it will in a sec. That now it's going to go to this loop, then into this loop, and then do this. Now let's play with this a little bit. So I'm going to change the numbers from 3 to 2. So it's going to count from 3 into 2. Now here is your trivia question of the day. How many times is it going to write hello to our list box? Pause this video and think for a second. And now that you're back, think about what's going to go on here. In fact, let's go ahead and just hit start. It does it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Now, how does that relate to this guy? In fact, this is driving me nuts. I have to set that up. So this fires off 6 times. And if we think about it, the for loop means that this has to go at least 3 times. From this scope to this guy, it has to go at least 3 times. And this one has to go 2 times. So there's this feeling that, well, maybe it'll fire 5 times or whatever. But because it's inside it, it can't get outside of it until it does it once. So let's track this. If I say I is equal to 0, then I'm in here, I is equal to 0, and now j is equal to 0. And now this fires off. And we're done, right? We are, but we go back up to the top of the scope, where j is now equal to 1. And I is still equal to 0, and then it's going to fire off again. Then it's going to come back down here, going to go to 2, and it says, okay, we can skip back. And then it hits here, and now it goes back, and now I is equal to 1. And is it over for the inside because it's already fired? No, actually, believe it or not, because we have an initialization here, when it comes back to this for statement, that initialization occurs again, and j is all of a sudden 0. So I is now 1, j is now 0, and it's going to go. And it can't escape until j is 1, and then j is 2, boom, out. So basically, this is going to do 3 times this times this. So to figure out the total number, you just multiply this guy by this guy if you're doing it by ones and starting it from 0. And that should give you the total. So 3 times 2 is 6. If I change this to 4 and I keep that at 2, this should give me 8 times. Let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So that's exactly right. We got it based on the limits here of both of our loops. Now, where can you use these? Well, the basic ones, matrices. I remember in math we used to use these all the time. And then when I went on to finite elements, use matrices to solve real-world problems. So that's kind of a big one. But this occurs in lots of places. Like, let's say you're filling up like an inventory or some type of database where you have columns, and you want to put in the first column, you want to put, let's say, how much something costs. In the second column, you want to put um, the name of whatever, or you could switch it. So it could be name in one column and then cost in the second column. If you're doing some type of inventory system like that, well, you'd go 0 to 1 because the first column would relate to the 0, and then the second column would be related to 1. And then the number of things that you have would be this. So in other words, if you have 17 items, then you want to go and do 2 for each one of those items, if that makes sense, right? A price and a name for each of them. Hat, $5. Coat, $35. Shoes, $65. That sort of thing until you get down to the 17th piece of item. And that totally makes sense in our design because this is an item box, right? A list box full of items. So if we had double items or a double column here, that would work perfect.